as always, we all want to know what is the source of Krias HaTorah, why do we do it, what are the minhagim that are involved with it, and what are the halachos that pertain to it. And again, specifically just Krias HaTorah. So we're not going to get into, because it's not really found in Orach Chaim, in terms of the halachos of Ksivas Sefer Torah, that's in Yoreh Deah, but here we're going to do it much more from the shul perspective, from a congregant perspective, which is a lot more practical for the crowd. So let's begin. So the Gemara says in Baba Kama that there was a takana that was instituted. Source number 1. Asarat takanos tiken Ezra. Ezra instituted 10 different takanos. I'll read them all and I'll explain some, and some we'll just gloss over. Shekorim b'mincha b'Shabbos. That's, I think, straightforward. Korim b'sheni v'chamishi. V'dagin b'sheni v'chamishi. Again, this idea of fishing. Mechabsin b'chamishi b'Shabbos. That a person should do laundry on Thursday. Again, all these takanos, some are just, they all have spiritual components to it, but often they're just very practical, right? The reason why you want to do laundry on Thursday, not on Friday, so you don't go into Shabbos tired, which, by the way, leads to a very interesting question. In the modern era, this is worthwhile just digressing for a minute. If you do laundry on a Friday, you're violating the Takana of Ezra. It says you should do laundry on a Thursday. So this is modern day, this is a real question. Because in the olden days, you did laundry on Thursday because it was a whole day affair to go down to the river, to wash your clothes, then you had to dry your clothes, and until everything would be done, it would take a couple days. And you didn't want to go into Shabbos tired, so you do laundry on Thursday. Today, it is not so difficult to do this. And it's done, and you walk away, right? Like, literally, what do? It takes more time to fold the clothes and to gather the clothes, and it does to actually do the laundering is the easiest part of the entire process, right? So, according to most poskim, this takana actually might not even have any relevancy in the modern era because of technology. So very interesting how technology even plays a role sometimes into halacha. And by the way, it's actually brought down in halacha that you're supposed to do kibbutz is supposed to do laundry on a Thursday. Again, interesting how the modern era kind of changed all that. But again, why not do it on a Thursday if you can? One less than do it Friday is definitely beneficial.
Why are you not allowed to go into Shabbos tired?
You should not go into Shabbos tired because it's going to ruin your covered Shabbos. By the way, no, isn't that shocking?
The point isn't to
stay for 24 hours. Isn't that amazing? Or I'll give you another example. You should, if you have quintessence is a bad example. To have your wisdom teeth taken out, you shouldn't do it on a Friday because it's going to ruin your Shabbos. How are you going to have
school otherwise?
Right. Okay. Question: what's going to happen to Mevatel Torah? That's if you're learning in yeshiva and you're going to miss Torah. That's an interesting question. But anyways, I'm going to move on. We're not going to get anywhere. For ochlin shum be'erev Shabbos. Again, this is a very strange thing. You eat what shum? Garlic on a Friday. I do yes. Maybe that's referring to, that's the original source for schmaltz herring, maybe like a pre-Shabbos schmaltz herring. V'shtei isha v'shkamet v'ofa, she wakes up early and bakes. We're yotze that often by going to Sobeys. V'shtei isha chogeres b'sigar, again, where she's dressed. V'shtei isha chofefes v'tovelas, that a woman preparing for the mikvah. V'shehu rochlin u'machzirin ba'rayos, ba'irios, that you, I don't know what this is referring to, you have to, in terms of in terms of how you prepare, Rashi, here. Yeah, that you bring different types of perfumes for women. V'tiken tvila l'balei keren, and this is also what is well known, is that a bal keri is if a man goes to the mikvah before he davens before he learns, right? Takanas Ezra. Okay, here we go. What's the rationale? Shiyu korin b'mincha b'Shabbos mishum yoshvei kranos. What's the reason why they instituted laning and Shabbos afternoon? Take a look at Rashi at the bottom there. Yoshvei chanios kol yemos achol oskim b'schora. Because these guys were in business all week long. They could go to shul. They got a minyan. They learned Torah. They were actually working. They were working all day long. So at least Shabbos afternoon, you have an opportunity to get a taste of next week's parsha, right? And they couldn't make it to shul on a Monday or a Thursday, so at least Shabbos afternoon they get a taste. It's kind of like, what is next week's parsha? I don't know. Find out when I show up in shul, right? At least this way they knew already that afternoon what was good. It's like a preview. It's a concept of a preview, right? Or maybe this is the source for. Anyways, probably not. Anyways, that's the kind of here.
Was this like the not religious crowd, or is this like most people couldn't hear the parsha?
So remember that in the time. That's a very good question. Remember, this is way before the conservative, the reform movement.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I could become a secular Jew. It wasn't really an option. So, although in the time of Ezra, we know that assimilation was very problematic. We know that from the Pesukim, Ezra and Nehemiah, where they show up and they see like the Jewish community in pretty bad shape. So, yes, there's no question that many people weren't committed. I think that's definitely part of it. But I also think that from a very practical perspective, look, it's not so crazy. I'm sure it could be many of your fathers. If you have to be downtown at 7 a.m., you're not going to shul, right? So it's not so crazy that there are people who simply couldn't make it to Minyan during the week, right? So. Okay, the Gemara continues. V'shu korim b'shin v'chamishi. Ezra again? So the Gemara asks, what are you talking about? That's the kind of Ezra to lane on a Monday or Thursday? What are you talking about? This is an original takana that goes back to the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Tanya is under a brisa. Vayelchu shloshes yamim b'midbar v'lo matzu mayim. The Jewish people traversed. They traveled 3 days. They couldn't find water. I think we've all heard this void at some point in time. Dorshi v'shumas amru ein mayim el Torah. Shenamar have kotza meluchu l'mayim. Kevan shlchu shloshes yamim below Torah. Galu amdu nevim shebenehem v'tignu lehem sheyu korim b'Shabbos mafsikin be'echad b'Shabbos v'korim b'sheni mafsikin shlishi v'revi v'korim b'chamishi mafsikin or Shabbos kadesh lo yelchu 3 days below Torah. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about this. It's very strange. What do you mean? Moshe Rabbeinu was mataken to read. So we know. So it wasn't necessarily a takan of Ezra, although many people understand this. That Ezra formalized it, right? But what is the takan was? You do not go 3 days without learning Torah. So therefore, if you have laning on Shabbos, you have laning on Monday, laning on Thursday, there is no 3 days without learning Torah. If you take a look at the Rambam, in fact, in source number 2, he says it really definitively, Moshe Rabbeinu tikem lehem lisoshu korim b'Torah b'Rabim. And for the Rambam, this was by Moshe Rabbeinu, right, made a takana that you needed to have public discourse, public lectures, public reading of the Chumash, of the Torah. When? B'Shabbos, b'Shem v'Chamishi, b'Shachris. Why? Kedei shelo yu shloshes yamim b'lo shmiras Torah. Oh, so what about Ezra? Ve'ezra tiken shu korim kin b'mincha b'chol Shabbos v'shosh v'karnos. Now, how does the Rambam exactly understand the Gemara? Would be a time if we had more time for Ian, right? It appears the Gemara seems to say that what? For Korim b'Sheni v'Chamishi, right? No, it appears that one of the takan of Ezra is to read. The Rambam is saying, what's the kind of Ezra? There's Moshe Rabbeinu who's mitaken. So how could the Rambam go against the Gemara? Seems to imply that it was the kind of Ezra. The Rambam seems to say it was Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, that's for another time. But we see from here, so which is important, and that is you don't go a few days without learning. Oh, so what was the takan of Ezra? Takan of Ezra. So some people are just. One answer that some people give is that no. The takan of Ezra was Monday, Thursday. Moshe Rabbeinu said you should do it, but why Monday, Thursday? Because we all know you could have accomplished the actual thing by having it on Sunday, Wednesday. You don't have to go 3 days without Torah, right? So, and there's many combinations to have. You have 7 days in a week. It's not so difficult. Why did Ezra choose Monday, Thursday? This we know because of the market. Those were market days. More people went to the main cities, the average village. What?
Monday, Wednesday.
Could be Monday, Wednesday, right? So here of marketplace, it appears. By the way, you might know this from also Masechet Megillah, right? For laning Megillah, they went in every village just couldn't lane Megillah. They didn't have it, they didn't know it, right? So when they'd go to the cities, they'd be able to actually hear Megillah properly. So too, when they go to the cities to sell their wares from the various villages, they would have public Krias HaTorah, right? Or laning during davening in the morning, which meant that during the week in the villages, they wouldn't get a minyan. They wouldn't have these opportunities. Not every place is like Thornhill, right? Okay. Oh, and what's the idea? Why again? Why do mincha in the afternoon? Because not everyone caught it during the week. Okay. What else? Ezra was metaking more the construct of laning, meaning the idea of laning, and this is what other Rishonim say. No. Moshe Rabbeinu is metaking the concept of do public laning. How did it look? What were the parameters? That Ezra solidified. So that's how most of the Rishonim understand it. That Moshe had this idea of there's tremendous value to reading the Torah before Hessia, reading the Torah publicly, almost like a public lecture, right? Get people familiar with Chumash. I think there's value in that. But how did it look? No, that was the Ezra. And what did Ezra institute this idea of 3 people getting aliyah. You can't lane less than 10 psukim. There's actually only one exception. Anyone know the exception? The only time you lane less than 10 psukim? During laning on Vayavo Amalek, on Purim, it's 9 psukim. And the other Gemara says because it's one inyan. So fully Vayavo Amalek to the end of Parsha B'Shalach is one inyan, and that's okay. Otherwise, we always lane at least 10 psukim. I'll give you an example. Hezinu is so short. So why don't you lane the first? You're going to like Shlishi. You go into Sheni? No, you lane Rishon Sheni for Hezinu. Why? Just go to Rishon. The answer is it's just too short. Every guy would get one aliyah. I mean, every guy would get one pasuk for aliyah. So okay, fine. That's the idea behind the rabbi. Okay.
What do you call it? Didn't Gemara say that they used to read the entire Chumash over the course of like 3 years?
So yes. The original. But this is not Ezra. This is much later. There was a machlokas between the minhag of Bavel and the minhag of Eretz Yisrael.
They translated also as they were.
They had Meturgaman. Learning was longer. So it used to be that in Israel they'd finish the Torah every 3 years, and in Bavel every year. Guess the minhag we follow. So imagine if learning was a third of what it is today, right? There's one guy who wrote an article. I'm not going to mention his name. But one guy wrote an article saying that maybe if we want to bring more people to shul, we should cut down on laning. And that laning was half. Definitely cut down. I mean, tremendously. Although in a shul like this, it's not the laning that takes time; it's the in between the liyas that take time. Yeah. But anyways, let's just say, for argument's sake, right?
So Ezra didn't come. So what did Ezra do then? Ezra made it that you have to do 10 psukim?
Yes, so Ezra's metakin this idea of mincha and the idea of 3 people getting aliyah and at least 10 psukim. That was formalized by Ezra. Before, it might have been much more the general to kind of Moshe Rabbeinu. Ezra, I think, what's the word? Solidified it, contextualized it, organized it, structured it, and yeah. But because laning on Shabbos and Yontif is for Moshe Rabbeinu. Laning on Shabbos and laning on Yontif could be min HaTorah. Right? I think it's somewhere here. 3. Let's read the Mishnah Berurah, number 3. Because of Rambam and Perek Yud we saw that Hilchos Tefillah, Moshe Rabbeinu tiken them Yisrael shu korim b'Torah b'Rabbim b'Shabbos, b'Sheni b'Chamishi b'Shachris, kedei shelo yu shloshes yomim b'lo shmiras HaTorah. The Ezra tiken. So it appears from here. I apologize that it was already on a Monday and a Thursday. Monday and Thursday was already the kind of Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay. Ezra tiken shu korim gam b'mincha b'chol Shabbos mishum shekanos. We saw that already. V'gam hu tiken shu korim b'Sheni Chamishi shlosh b'nei Adam v'lo yikru pacham esar psukim. Fine. Here we go. Said Mishnah Berurah, ki bizman Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom lo ha'isa takana davka shu korim 3 people v'shlosh psukim v'davka v'asuhu v'tiken davar zeh. So the Mishnah Berurah said exactly what we said. That what happened? They had the idea of public reading. But the notion that it's 3 people getting aliyah and 3 psukim, a minimum of 10 altogether, that was the takana of Ezra. So this concept of public reading existed for Moshe Rabbeinu, and Ezra came and kind of put it and solidified it and gave it a sense of structure. Right? Again, there are those who even hold a Krias HaTorah. There's a dimension, exactly what it is and how it is. It's a conversation for another time. But there is a dimension of Krias HaTorah which might be min HaTorah. Okay. When the Sefer Torah is in the Aron Kodesh is open, is one obligated to stand up, or is one only obligated to stand up at other various points in time? So let's actually take a look. Believe it or not, you're going to see something quite fascinating. Source number 4. Haroa Sefer Torah kishehu mahalech. If a person who sees a Sefer Torah that is in transit, not a Sefer Torah walking, right, but a Sefer Torah in transit, chayav lamod lefanav. The obligation to stand for Sefer Torah, Rabotai, is only when it's in transit. When the Aron Kodesh is open, there is no chiyuv to stand. And you must stand until it's placed on the bima, not about. You have to wait until it's actually on the bima resting.
Wait, just the Aron has no holiness; it's only the Torahs that are inside.
Okay, hold on. We'll see. Well, we'll see. Or ad should custom in him, or until you can't see the Torah anymore. Meaning, if the Torah is being walked out of this room, the moment you can't see the Torah, there'd also be the time where you'd be allowed to sit down. But when the Torah is in transit, you're not allowed to. So this perhaps is a question for Simchas Torah. It means you'd be sitting during Simchas Torah in the room, in the shul, wherever Simchas Torah is happening.
Close your eyes.
When else? That's really the only question.
Can you do that?
Hakafos.
Can you close your eyes so you don't see it anymore? Look what?
I don't know.
Moving from one place to another, we're just holding them to dance.
That's a good question. There's more of a leniency, but there's those who are more lenient when there's dancing because it's like ongoing, right? It's,
Wait, what's in transit when it's like when it's walking with it, or when?
Yeah, so you go from point A to point B, from the Aron Kodesh to the Bima. There are certain shuls. Our shul does not do this, but there are certain shuls who parade the Sefer Torah. You ever seen that? They they're going the whole perimeter of the shul, right?
So they get by the mechitza.
The mechitza, right? Anyways, we're not. So interesting. So Rav Stavitchik was very much against that. He felt that was not Kavod Torah. He felt that Kavod Torah is to go from the shortest point, from the Aron Kodesh to the Bima. Rabbi David was very makpid on this. He felt that you don't parade a Sefer Torah. Simchas Torah is an exception. Something special about Simchas Torah, which is a little bit complicated. But you don't take it. You take it from point A to point B. And also, it's not fair to the people in shul. There are people there who are elderly, who are sick, and they have to stand. So instead, you're going to schlep it out another 2 minutes. It's not fair. Let the people sit. And it's a problem sitting when the Sefer Torah, as we see, is being paraded around the shul. Therefore, you should take it to the closest 2 points. Right? So, much of the, so there's something about like the certain shuls, they parade Sefer Torah, and the rabbi stands there, and the president, they walk around the shul. First of all they do is shmuz all the time. So exactly why that's a covered Torah, I'm not quite sure, because it's like a parade.
This past Shabbos, you would have noticed that.
They had like high five. What? Oh, Shershman, yeah, they do that. Yeah. So it's like a. I dove it downstairs minion. Okay. Anyways, this is the Ramah. Aval lifnei chumashim shelanu ein tzrichim lamod. Phew, that'd be a big problem. For chumash is being paraded, you have to stand. That's gonna be very. Very problematic. V'yesh machmirin, and says the Rashba, when even for a chumash, perhaps the Rashba writer should be machmir when a chumash is traveling, which is quite often one should stand as well. Okay, hashmei kol hanosei Sefer Torah. If you hear the Sefer Torah, let's say there are bells on the Torah. By the way, how you like to have bells on the Sefer Torah on Shabbos is a fascinating question for another time. Obviously, you're allowed to because you see it everywhere, right? But let's say, for example, you hear the Sefer Torah. So you're sitting in here and you're learning right now, and you hear the chant of the Sefer Torah. No, even though you cannot see it, you can hear it. You need to stand. So there we go. Truth is, do we have bells?
Yeah,
we do. Some of them have bells. Some have bells. Yeah, the truth is, I don't know if the bells are that good. They can actually hear them. Like, I don't think you can really pick them up.
Are they even bells, or just the metal just
clangs a little?
I don't think there's that little thing inside.
That goes ding 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 ding.
I think it's just the
little
piece.
ball.
Yeah.
Does that make a noise?
If they hit each other, but not like a bell noise.
Not like a bell.
Like a cling.
Clinging noise.
The metal just kind of clangs.
Right.
But if
Right.
you hear like Mizmor LeDavid, so you know that it's being carried around, then like I don't know.
You're saying if you hear people like, that you're saying you're in the hallway and you hear people saying, "He's more little," right? And you're like, "Oh, they're."
When I was davening, you could hear the whole.
Right. Interesting. I think you have to hear the Torah. You have to hear the Torah. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, this is what's amazing. Anyways, enough for now. Aruch HaShulchan number 5. I want to get to just the end here. Klamar ben kishehu yoshev tzurich lamod ben kishehu holech but Sefer Torah over lefanav tzurich lamod ad she'Sefer Torah overas. Right? Doesn't make a difference if you're sitting from the minyan. You got to always understand. Shu yoshev omer b'nei Sefer Torah lo yashav ad sheyamod zeh shemolechenu v'yagia Sefer Torah l'mekama. As I said before, you cannot sit till it goes down. V'kasha omer lanoach ein z'amida. If you are kasha omer lanoach ad shidkasa hanosa Sefer Torah menehem. But you're not allowed, when you stand, you need to stand properly, not just, hunched over. Leaning over, you have to stand upright and erect. You can't just, hunch over. It's not appropriate until, again, it's placed down or it's out of the room. Okay. He says this. Last two lines of Aruch HaShulchan. V'hainu kshesh pomenim hamitkashtashim hashim hakol. There are bells on it. V'nogin bazeh heter b'Shabbos, as it says in Orach Chaim. Av shesh mifakakim bazeh mishum shemim yashmi yaskol. Kamakom kvar nagu heter. Right. Aruch HaShulchan even says there's a minhag to have bells on Sifrei Torah. How can you do it? Ashma yaskol, producing a sound. Just like you cannot knock on a door on Shabbos with the sound. You can't go. You do that on Shabbos. Right on the door.
What? Why not?
Ashma yaskol.
I thought the whole thing was on like instruments. You're not allowed to play.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's also why you can't bang on the table on Shabbos for.
So
What? No.
knocking on a door to produce a sound could be a problem.
Also, the problem with producing sounds is you're going to use an instrument. No, that's the problem.
So that's the original thing. Okay, well, conversation for another time. But that's the minhag is to in fact have a Sefer Torah. The minhag is to in fact have a Sefer Torah with bells. That usually is predominant minhag, even though many people don't like it. Okay, what I want, and what's the reason why I want to put? And how come we're allowed to sit even though the Sifrei Torah and the Aron Kodesh, which are standing? The answer is because they're in their own rishos. Since it's own rishos and it's covered, you're allowed to do it. So that's the last. Even if, in theory, according to the halacha, even if the Aron Kodesh is open, since it's own rishos, that's the rationale behind why you are allowed to remain seated.
The Sifrei Torah, they're always covered.
No, but since it's like its own rishos in the Aron Kodesh, that's why you're allowed to sit, even when it's open. So, the prevailing minhag is not that. The minhag is the moment the Aron Kodesh is open, is to stand. Right? That's the Ne'ilah is a good example of that, right? But that's why people are tired. And there's no reason why they can't sit because mikaradin, you do not need to stand when the Aron Kodesh is open, even though that is the minhag. It's not you're not obligated to do so.
It would be like rolling the Torahs before shul.
So if it's on the bima, you're fine. But while it goes from the Aron Kodesh to the bima, you have to stand. That's why they do this, no? They always do. Okay, says the Rav Moshe Feinstein, and with this I think no, not quite. Says Rav Moshe, so people ask him a question: do you really need to stand when our Kodesh is open? The chiyuv is only when it's been transit. However, aval nira pashut. Heter leishev kishamed molicho bimakom she'elav hu tzrach lavi et sefer hu davka kisharatzon hamolicho hu lamod sham va'af muchrach lamod mishun deleka makom leishev aval kisheika makom leishev. There's no place to sit. Ve'ena ratzah lamod tzrichin lamod ad sheishev. So you need to stand. You have no choice. The ha ze nechshav lo gildim kamo. The hamakamo sefer Torah hu ad sheishev. So he says that's why you need since the intent of the person was to take it out and to place it down, while it goes from point A to point B, you need to stand. We have a minhag with two Sifrei Torah, right? That's Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, two Sifrei Torah. Until the second guy sits with the Sefer, which is Lim Komo, the second Sefer is being brought to a chair, you need to remain standing, not just when the first Sefer Torah was in the bima. You have to wait until the second person sits hold of the Sefer Torah. Which, by the way, we see from here is the reason why on Krias Torah maybe you'd be allowed to sit. Because what did we say? You're only allowed to you stand until when it reaches mim kamo. What's mim kamo? It's going around 100 times. There is no makam. So that's why perhaps there might be room to say you're allowed to sit because there's no makam that's going to. And when the Sefer Torah, when the Sefer Torah goes by, you should kiss it. The Nahagin, Sefer Torah over the Nashek also. Mivin gam etzakatani the Nashek at the Torah. I'm sure we've seen this before, where children are brought to kiss the Torah. It's good chinuch till chancham for his reason of mitzvahs. And it says, what about there? You'll see from here. What about standing during hakafos? So says the Piskei Tshuva. He says, dun 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 v'alpi kabbalah yesh inin gadol sheyeh echad omer al yedei abima kol zman da kafos sefer Torah b'yado v'cholam v'shar sefer Torah meraktin sevivo. You should stand the entire time. However, v'yinei ha'am nohagin lahakel l'shabbos lafush be'ez hakafos afa sefer Torah b'amida. When the kafos we stand. V'chvar richa poskim lulmod zchus al minhag. Im kain hamigdaktikim nis harim shelo lashavas ella im kain sefer Torah bechekam shaz mutar lashavas. Meaning, if you're holding the Torah, then you'll be allowed to sit to rest. Afal pi sheyesh od sefer Torah malachim. So if you're doing hakafos, or I'll give you an example. Let's say you are holding the Torah and someone else is hagbah. you do not stand when it's Abba. You're holding the Sefer Torah, you sit. Okay? And we see, he mentions this idea of there's a kula, perhaps if during Hakafos. And last but not least, number 9, Mishnah Bura, va'afilu im mitchila haya omeid mibachutz, mitzvah likanis bezakneses, liros, kushemotzin, machnis, Sefer Torah, mishum baravam hadras melach, that when you see a Sefer Torah being brought out, you should actually walk into the room and see it take place. Okay, so we see it from here, just to summarize, the Takana of Moshe Rabbeinu, structured and formalized more by Ezra, and really the halach is only when a Sefer Torah is in transit is one obligated to stand. However, the minute prevent minhag is when the Kodesh is open. Lots of them to be lenient if you are sick and if you're tired and if you're elderly. And for Hakafos, one could argue you can sit because there's no makom for it to go to. But again, the prevailing minhag is to stand if there's Hakafos in the room and you're in that room. If the Sefer Torah is on transit and you're holding a Sefer Torah, then in fact you can sit. In fact, there are many who say, for like Hagba and Kelmales in those days, you should in fact sit, because it's more of a cover for the Sefer Torah, unless it's being used at that second, which is not, because you're laying from another Sefer, you should sit with it. Have a terrific Tuesday. We'll see you on Thursday.